Okay guys, we're doing another video here on the 2015 Toyota Highlander. Today we're going to do front pads and rotors. So we got pads and rotors from the dealership, and the car has 96,000 miles on it. So we're going to go ahead and get that going, kind of doing a tune-up on this with the spark plugs and the brake rotors, just trying to make sure we keep it going for a while. Okay guys, so I made this stupid little piece of wood with a seam cut into it. So I like to use a floor jack under the pinch welds, but you know, as you guys have tried to use these before, if you do it on the pinch weld, it either wants to smash it or they don't fit around well. So piece of wood was free, cut 2 of them, made them for pinch welds. The fun part about it is they crack and creak when you use them, so it can make for some interesting stuff. But they seem to work pretty well and don't jack up the pinch weld seams under the car. So we'll go ahead and take this wheel off. All right, our wheel is off the ground. And I'm going to put jack under just for safety. We don't want that falling on us today or tomorrow or the next day. So alrighty. Okay, and we'll take this one off here. Put my safety glasses on, don't forget about those. You don't want a shattering socket. All right, we'll set these safely to the side. And set our wheel out of the way. Let's get it going. Okay guys, so we're gonna go ahead and crack open. These are a 14 millimeter on the caliper bolts. Not a 17, but a 14. 17 is the caliper bracket. So these are 14. Get some light in here so we can see what's going on. That would help. Lean on this ever so slightly to compress those pistons just so we get some play there. All right, our 2 bolts out. We'll set those aside. Got a caliper hook here. Hopefully that'll work. We'll take this off slowly because I'm sure these are going to come out. All right, we're going to hook that caliper up here. Let's get our pads out. All right, pretty even wear on there. A little bit of meat left, but with the mileage and the front rotors, we want to go ahead and change this out. We're going to move on to the 17s here. Okay guys, so we're going to go ahead and take off these 17s on the back here. All right, and there is our bracket. And we'll get some screws to put in here to remove this rotor. Okay guys, so these are just some metric screws. They got a 13mm head on there. I don't know the thread pitch and the diameter offhand, just in one of my metric screw bins that I have. So what we're gonna do is we put these in here instead of beating on this. We're gonna put these screws in here and they will help walk the rotor off of the hub face and then any of the little corrosion that's on here. Corrosion's not super bad here. No salt, no snow, no water really right now either. So what we're gonna do is just slowly cinch these down. And you can tap on this with a hammer too. Usually as soon as, there we go, there's one side. And the other, and then it makes that job pretty easy. Wow, a lot of corrosion on the hub face for where we're at. So, and we did get new rotors, pads and rotors, factory, instead of turning them, just to make sure that we're all good. So right here you can see we've got the rotor part number, and let's see if these are both the same part number, and we have our pads from the Toyota dealer as well. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get this hub face cleaned up and clean up our caliper bracket and get this side back together, get going. Okay guys, so we got this hub cleaning tool here. I believe it's an OTC tool, so we're gonna clean these up a little bit. All right, guys, so we switched over to this flat sanding disc. We're going to get in between the studs now, and then we'll grab a wire brush, a wire wheel, and a brush, and we'll get in between there. Just wanting to make sure that this hub face is nice and flat so the rotor sits flat on there. Okay, switch to the small little wire wheel here. So we'll hit that in a couple of these areas, and then actually gonna put that out a little bit farther on the shaft so we can get in there a little easier. All right, let's see what we can do with that. All right, so I like to use a box when I hose this down with brake parts cleaner to try to avoid messing up my garage floor. So we'll hose that down, check it for straightness. Let's go ahead and hose this down now while it's apart. All right, then we'll hit the caliper really fast as well. All right, switching brands. All right, we'll let that evaporate for a second here. And let's check to see, make sure there's no proud areas on this hub face. Feels nice and smooth. Okay guys, we got this all cleaned up here. Feels good. That hub surface where the rotor is going to go. So when we move on, I have a nylon brush. Before I compress the calipers here, I just want to brush a little bit of any crusties or any junk off of there. Still being supported by our caliper bolt here, or I'm sorry, our caliper hook. All right, so let's see if we can get one of our old pads in here. If we can compress this, these double piston calipers. So I got a caliper compression tool here, kind of an older style. Takes a second to get it in there because it's threaded. So I do like the new caulking gun style ones, or newer, I suppose. Unfortunately, this is what I have. So get everything lined up the best that we can in there. So since this is only pushing on one side, I'm going to make sure I'm squeezing the other at the same time. Just nice and slow. Okay, and we are keeping an eye on our reservoir just to make sure that we're not overflowing with fluid. All right, and I think we are about bottomed out. We're going to take this off. All right, take our pad out of there. See, I'm just burping out the air in these convoluted boots here. And I'll take our nylon brush one more time and just kind of make sure this rubber is nice and clean. No crusties on there. I'm going to give it another shake down with the fluid. Brake cleaner. Just to make sure that we're nice and clean and that everything looks good. All right, I think we're good there. Okay guys, we're going to get one of our new rotors here. And we'll get that on there. Nice new rotor. All right. But we'll go ahead and clean it first. Just to get the oil and stuff that they ship them off of there. You don't want to put that on just straight out of the box because they do put, I think it's called cosmoline coating on there to keep them from rusting. You can see a lot of that junk coming off of there. There again, you can see all of that coating and other stuff that they put on there or that gets on there from production to actual use. So hit this side one more time. All right. Nice fit, no high spots or anything that we can feel. So we'll go ahead and put a lug nut on until we're ready to put the caliper bracket back on, just to hold everything in place. All right. Now what we will do is clean out our caliper bracket. So we're going to take this and I'm going to start with the clips. I like to start on one side and then move back to the other, just because I want to make sure these have separate clips for each side on the Toyota. So on most Toyota models, they have the stock caliper. So I like to take those off, leave them where I know where they go, clean the landings where these go in really well. This is a wire brush I'm using. In some parts of the country, you guys might need to use a file. Where we're at here, no real rust or anything under there. Just cleaning, making sure that we have a nice smooth surface for those to go back into. So I don't know if you can see there, but it's nice and clean. So I'm gonna lay that down for a second. And then I'm gonna do the same with these clips. Just make sure that we're cleaning these out. One of the good things about the cardboard too is you can poke one of the corners down in here and it'll help hold it for you to clean these out really good. So these are some stainless steel of some sort, and clean up really easily. Just a couple brushes on there. Everything comes off. And they are ready to go. So I do inspect down into these landings where this goes into, just making sure there's no junk in the corners. And then we have a nice flat surface there. And then it's just a matter of plugging this back in. Just give it another little brush right around where that lands. Just wanting to make sure that we don't have any high spots or crusties that are going to impede that sitting flat. Okay, click that one back in, and we're ready to go with that one. So I'm going to do the other side, plugging it into the corrugated again to help hold it in place. Hopefully you guys can see that here. I'll move it over here. And like I say, just kind of giving it a good brush. And I'll shoot all this down one last time with the brake cleaner once we put it in there. I always like to make sure that these are slid to the far outside edges of the caliper bracket, just to make sure we're not going to have anything dragging. So there again, I'm going to take this apart this way, put one on the outside, one on the inside. Just helps me keep track in case there's any differences. I'm going to clean these out again. And obviously when we're doing this, just inspecting to make sure nothing looks off. All right, coming back up here, give this one last run through with that. Wire brush on there, just kind of checking the edges, make sure we're nice and clean there. And we'll go ahead and plug this pad clip back in there. All right, we're moving right along here. Making sure there's nothing in there. Set that back down. We're going to clean this pad clip here too now. All right, got that one cleaned out. And that one plugged back in. All right, and now we are going to clean our slide pins and re-lube them. So I like to use, this is Napa one, Sail Glide. And then I've been doing quite a bit. So this is actually the AGS brand of Sail Glide as well. So I like to use that for the slide pins. So there again with these, one of these will have a rubber silencing ring on there and one doesn't. I like to redo all of these while one at a time while they're still, the other one's still in the caliper, because I'm not good at remembering that and I don't take good enough notes. So we're going to pull the rubber convoluted bushing back a little bit. This, I believe, is the one with the rubber ring. I felt it fighting there, so you can see that little rubber ring on there. So we're going to be careful not to stretch that out while we do this. I'm not going to pull out on that ring while I'm cleaning it. So I'm going to clean the boot landing here and just kind of spin this to get that old grease off of there. Being mindful, like I said, not to pinch this or stretch it out. I don't want it to be any bigger than it is. So it fits on there right and does what it's supposed to do. So you can buy those. I did notice that part's available. So if you have any issues with it, some of the aftermarket hardware kits come with it and some don't. So there is our clean pin for this side. So just kind of looking in here, I'm just going to go around just the opening of this boot, get any little crusties out of there, nothing major. It didn't come out of here with a bunch of junk on here, so I'm not. Okay, and I also like to brush just around this edge here because it does get a little corroded from sitting in there. You guys will see it'll take off that little bit of corrosion that's there. Being careful not to hit the actual shaft of this. All right, clean that up a little bit, give it one last wipe. And we're going to put a little bit of our Sail Glide on here. a little more than I wanted. I get a little bit in that boot landing just to help that seal up. And a nice coating on here, not too thick, not too thin. Being mindful not to get it in the indentation there, because that will build up in the bottom of the bore and prevent this from traveling all the way. And we're gonna gently plug this back in there with that silencing ring on there. It makes it a little difficult. You can kind of see I just kind of wallow it back and forth, and it ends up working its way in there. Don't fight it. You don't want to pull that up. And then we push it down in there. There's a little bit of air in there that we can I don't know if you heard that, but it just burped out by just pulling that back ever so slightly. Then we just want to make sure that we have good travel in there. Looks like we got a pretty good vacuum going. All right, so we got good movement there, and give it a little twist. Just make sure everything's working its way in there, and that's moving nice and easy. And you can see on this old one, it moves, but not quite as good as that one. So we're going to do the same thing with that one. Gently pry this back, pull it out of there. Got that old nasty grease on there. So we'll take the clean side of our paper towel here. Now this one doesn't have the ring, as you can see there. So that's, like I said, why I like to keep them from getting mixed up. So we're going to clean this one off real good. You can kind of see around there where I was showing you. It's a little hard to see that it has a little bit of corrosion. So I'm going to take that wire brush again and just spin this. There's the compressor. All right, compressor's off. So just kind of checking that. We just brushed around there ever so slightly. We're going to take another little bit of our Seal Glide here. A little bit in that boot landing. You can use like an acid brush or something on here too to help get it on there. I usually do that, but apparently today I just wanted to make a mess. All right, and we're going to make sure that no crusties in there. Feed that one back in there. Make sure that it's moving nice and easy, and it does, much easier than it was. Give it a little turn. All right, and that is that clean. So we are going to mount this back on the car. All right, and this is our 17 millimeter bolts. Okay, got the top one in there. We're going to do the bottom one, and then we'll snug them up with the ratchet, and then we'll torque them to spec. All right, we got those started. Now that I'm done playing with the grease for a minute, I'll put my gloves back on. All right, and we will torque that down here in just a second. Let's give another little. Okay, so we got the torque wrench set to 79 pound-feet, foot-pounds, whatever you want to call it there, which is what it says that these are supposed to be. Okay, there's one. A little bit of an odd angle up here, but we'll make it happen. Alrighty, and there's two. 79 pound-feet is what that one says there. So we are good to go there. Now I got our new pads here, and it did come with new springs for the separated the pads, so we can get rid of that one. We got new ones here, 4 nice new ones, so we'll set 2 aside, the other side, and we will get our pads out. So all these pads appear to be identical. These are made by Advix, and here's the old pads that came off. So knowing by the imprints left by the pistons on this one and then the outside of the caliper on this one, I know which pad went where. So just double checking to make sure there's no differences. And I don't think that there is. Let's see. These all appear to be identical. Same numbers and everything. So, that being said, we are going to just reload our calipers here. So the ones that came off had no shims on them. And I don't know the history of this car. So I don't know if this was maybe pad slapped and they forgot the shims, or if these don't come with shims. If you guys can let me know with your experience, we're going to put them back in the same way they came out. So just no shims. And all right, so there we are. And what I want to do is, before I put the springs on here, I am going to put the top caliper bolt in, making sure that our line isn't tweaked, or we pretty much go back in the same exact way. Oh, we still got some brake planer in there. So we'll give that a second. Just dry out the remaining of there. All right. So now I want to put this top bolt in, just start it by hand ever so slightly. Make sure that we line up where we're supposed to. All right, get a couple threads started, and then what I'm going to do is hopefully just pivot this up out of the way. And I'm going to take my nylon brush. I can see here now that this is pivoted up. I just want a couple little crusties on this boot that I want to get off. All right, and everything looks really good there. So this is my favorite part, where these clips usually like to eject pads on us. So let's see if we can avoid doing that. And let's see, we'll get the bottom one in first, or so I say. bottom one in. Could probably do this without the gloves and it would be a little easier. And there's a tiny little hole on each side of the pads where these fit nice into. So I'm just going to hold that, pivot down, and now there's 2 fingers up around the pads besides mine. And I'm going to just slide my bottom hand out of there, pushing in that slide pin just a little bit, and we are seated. I'm going to put the bottom screw in here, or bolt, I guess that is. I like to mix up screws and bolts and nuts and washers and sayings all the time. So, all right, and what I'm going to do really quick, because I know I said I was going to do it, I'm just going to give one last cleaning spray. Maybe get my bucket where it's supposed to go. Okay, we'll let that drain in there. And I think we are done with this side. We are going to torque, actually we're not done. We're going to torque these caliper to the bracket bolts, and then we'll be done with this side. We'll give it a once over, just make sure everything, kind of just doing an inspection while we're in here. We had this is a family member's car, took it to a shop, said we needed a lot of work. We did the spark plugs in another video, you can see that. A little bit of a job on here because he had to remove the intake plenum, but they also said that it needed new control arms, and these control arm bushings, like in every vehicle, around 100,000 miles, they have hairline fractures and cracks in them, but definitely not in need of replacement yet. So this one looks like you have to, if it's anything like the Camrys and the Avalons of the same era, you possibly have to lift the motor mount out of the way to get to the front control arm bolt. I know I've seen it done where you can just lift the engine and kind of get away with that. So not doing that right now. These aren't bad. They just have hairline fractures. Like I say, let's torque the top ones. We'll see where we're at. And then we'll do the other side. We'll button it up and show you our road test and possibly bedding in the brakes. Okay, guys, 25 pound-feet of torque for the bolts that hold the caliper itself to the caliper bracket. That is our 14 millimeter socket. We have our torque wrench set here to 25. So this one should hopefully, there we go. One more check. All right, so that one is set, and we're going to do the bottom one. And you heard that. Alrighty, so we are good to go on this side. We'll put the wheel on and pump up the brake, do the other side, and then take you guys for a ride. All right, we can take our lug nut off now. Hopefully remember to do that before we put the wheel back on. Not saying I have done that, but it's something that I could do. All right, so let's get our light out of here. You can sit it over there for now. And I will look up the torque of the Toyota wheels. I believe it's 79 also, or 75. Don't quote me on that. I'm going to set the torque wrench to low, set it to tighten, and we're just going to snug these down. And then when we sit it back on the ground, we will torque them. Okay, taking our jack stand out that we snuck in there off camera for safety. Let's get everything out of the way here. We'll slowly lower that down. And we'll check the torque really quick and let you know. 76 is the torque for the Toyota lugs on here, so all right, so we should be good to go on that side, and we will take you for a road test here in just a second. Okay guys, so we just got back, bedded in the brakes, took it out, went up to about 60 miles an hour, down to 40, probably a good 6 times, and then did some 40 to 20 slow stopping, or not actually completely stopping, but slow driving and letting them cool off. Didn't come to a complete stop anywhere. I have a loop where I can do that. Brought it back and the brakes feel really good. So just kind of letting it cool off. And I think we're good to go. Overall, it was pretty successful. So we'll let you know how it goes.